Thanks for joining us. It's great to be here at FoodCentric. I know for many of us, after 2 years of COVID, it's great to be kind of back together again, right, in groups, meeting with suppliers, meeting with colleagues, talking about the industry. So I'm personally grateful to be here in general, but also specifically appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning and talk to you a little bit about what I think is one of the biggest challenges that we face in the restaurant industry right now. So in terms of my presentation today, what I wanted to cover is this question of how do you attract and retain talent in what is arguably one of the most difficult hiring environments and labor environments that we've maybe ever experienced in our career. So what's really interesting to me is, look, COVID was the toughest thing I think any of us have ever faced, right? And then we got past COVID, we thought, okay, it's going to be great again, right? It's going to be easy. And suddenly it's like, where did our workers go, right? Like, where's all the help? And while the customers are ready to come back, suddenly we've got rising food prices, we've got rising labor costs, and it's even hard to find people. I've got some of my customers who are facing 300% turnover in their restaurants. 300%. I hope none of you have that, but I was sitting down with the CIO of a large burger chain with over 700 restaurants, and they have locations that have 300% turnover. So this is the challenge we're facing in the marketplace today. Okay, so in terms of just my background, my name's Clinton Anderson. I'm the CEO at Forth. Some of you may have heard of Forth, some of you may have not. Many of you hopefully have heard of Hot Schedules. Hot Schedules is kind of our flagship product. We're a technology company. We've been in business for over 20 years providing software solutions to restaurants, to hotels, and to retail operations. We do everything from applicant tracking, onboarding, to help you with hiring. We do demand forecasting and scheduling to help with staffing your teams. We also do same-day pay, right? So one of the leading new products in the marketplace is a product that allows your team members to get paid same day. It's a free product. And in addition to that, we also have inventory products to help with supply chain. So we are kind of an end-to-end technology provider. We serve over 100,000 restaurants around the world in about 50 countries. The US market is by far our largest marketplace, but we serve some of the big global brands that you've heard of. But we also serve, your little local mom and pop Italian restaurant down the street, right? So everything from independent operators all the way up to large global chains is kind of what we do. Okay, so where I'd start my presentation is to say, since coming out of COVID, it feels like we're booming again. How many here feel busy? Right? Busy again, right? Busy generally in a good way, but not necessarily how we want to be busy, right? How many people here are struggling to make sure you got the right supplies, right, on your shelves? Making the right staff. Making sure those staff members are showing up for the right shifts, right? This is kind of the challenge we're all facing. And I think we could make the argument that what we're facing right now is the largest systemic shortage of labor since the Second World War, right? We have to go all the way back to our grandparents' era before we had the same challenge. And that's when America had 10 million men in uniform. And Rosie the Riveter putting on her coveralls, putting her hair up in a red scarf, and going and building B-24 bombers to support the war effort, right? That's kind of what we're facing right now. Did you know there's 1 million fewer restaurant workers in the industry today than there was pre-COVID? That's why it's feeling difficult. And what makes this really hard is that it impacts your operations every single day. We know from surveys that over 70% of restaurants are facing a staffing shortage. You're staffing below where you were pre-COVID. You're having a hard time getting everyone you need to fill your shifts. And you're having a hard time retaining some of your most productive workers. The second challenge to all of this is that when you add up the math, okay, so this is what's interesting. My team, my friends and family members come to me and say, hey, your business must be booming. I go out to restaurants and there's always a line. But the strange thing is, even though there's a lineup, many restaurants aren't actually turning their tables as fast as they used to, right? Because I know that when I go out for a really nice dinner with my family, about a 2-hour dinner now takes more like 3 hours, right? Sometimes I notice part of the dining room's closed down. And the reality is, because we don't have enough labor, even though we're busy, we're not making as much money. right? So we know that over 80% of restaurants are making less now than they did pre-COVID. At the same time, food costs are going up, labor costs are going up. And so one of the things we're striving to do is help our customers figure out how you win this war for talent. And that's what I'd like to talk about in terms of some very specific strategies. One of the fun things about my job is I get to work with restaurants from small independent operators all the way up to large global chains. I see everything from, high-end restaurant concepts all the way down to fast food, pizza concepts. I see this in the United States, I see it in Europe, I see it in Asia. And there's some common themes. And one of the first themes is that this is what's called a zero-sum game. And what I mean by that is, I like to think the world's a good place, and if we're running short of pie, we just make more pie, right? Everyone can enjoy pie. Coconut cream is my favorite, by the way. But in labor, we're facing a situation where there's just not enough labor. And so by a zero-sum game, what I mean is some people are going to win, and some people are going to lose. And so the challenge I want to extend to you is to be on that winning side. Because the companies who figure out how to win are going to be able to earn more, invest more, grow more. The companies who don't figure this out are going to struggle to make as much money, to grow as fast as you want, to make the investments you want in growing your business. Okay, so 4 key strategies we've seen, and I'll talk a little bit about each one of these. The first one is, how do I hire faster? How do I hire more effectively? Can you guys hear me okay? It's kind of tough speaking over the music in the background. As long as you guys can hear me, that's okay. The second strategy is, how do I deploy my technology more effectively? How do I deploy my teams more effectively, right? So I've got a certain number of staff, which shifts they should be working on, right? Like, we've always just kind of used our gut to tell us this. Like, I'm sure many of you have been in the restaurant industry, many of you since maybe even your teenage years. But even though your gut instincts are really, really sharp and well-tuned, there's technology out there who can bring science and apply the computer logic to it. The third part is, how do I engage those teams, right? So if I've got my team staffed most effectively, working the best shifts, optimizing the revenue, how do I make sure I can be in a situation where my teams are feeling good about being with me and they're not going to go somewhere else? And the last one's around pay. There's a new pay model emerging. Some people call it earned wage access. Some call it pay on demand. Some call it same-day pay. Whatever the term is, it's this new model out there that I think is going to change how people get paid and how your workers think about the job they have with you. Okay, so let me start with number 1. But number 1 is all around hiring. And the key here is speed of hiring, effectiveness of hiring. The challenge we're extending to our customers is, how do I decrease the time from first contact to offer by 90%? Okay, think about that for a minute. The old model was, I'd get an application in, I'm busy, maybe I talk to the applicant tomorrow, have them come by the restaurant, talk to them, interview them, and make an offer. If you're waiting a day until you get back to someone who's applied, you've lost. They've already gone somewhere else. Because, look, I had this experience with my daughter, right? My daughter's 17 years old, she's my youngest, and she was looking for a summer job. She's a swimmer, a water polo player, and she was hoping she could work at either a youth camp or at a swimming pool teaching swimming lessons. So hourly worker, right? She went on to Indeed, she did a quick search, she found 12 different jobs. I said, which one do you like best? She says, I don't know, I just want the first job I can get that kind of meets my kind of pay expectations. She applied to all the jobs. Two of the companies reached out within a couple of hours. One of the companies said, come on in tomorrow morning, we'll interview you. She got her offer. She didn't even wait to hear from those other companies. Those other companies looked interesting to me. I'm a little older, right? Maybe a little more mature. I'm like, let's wait and hear. She's like, no, I just want a summer job. I want a job right now. It pays $15 an hour. That's great for me. Let's go. And so the point is, things have changed, right? If you're using your normal traditional processes for hiring, odds are you're losing out on staff. Okay, so there's 3 ways you can kind of address this. One is decrease the complexity at the top of the funnel, right? Top of the funnel is the applicants. Get them in fast, right? So Don't wait for a telephone call. Don't wait to see them in person. Text them, right? Look, we've got technology solutions that allow all this, but even if you're not using one of those solutions, make sure you're communicating with these applicants the way they want to be communicated with, right? Your average worker doesn't want a telephone call. They want to be texted back and forth to. Make the decision fast. Second is, let your managers use technology to screen the candidates faster. And third, get to offer as fast as you can, right? The reality is we have very high turnover rates. You don't want to hire poorly. You want to make smart choices, but think that speed is the key. Speed, speed, speed. Okay, that's hiring. The second part of the equation is how do I get my right staff deployed at the right times? Historically, we thought of labor costs partially as just, it's a cost game, right? I want to be smart about when I have workers in my restaurants. I want to make sure they're good and they're doing they're caring about my customers and delivering a quality experience. But we often think about it as I need to manage my cost. And so scheduling was all around the cost. Now, Hot Schedules has built its reputation for 20 years as being a technology tool that helps you get the right team on the right shift at the right time. It's not just about cost anymore. It's also about revenue. How do you get the right workers working the right hours in the right shifts on the right days to maximize your revenue? You can try and figure it out. Maybe some of you are even good using spreadsheets and calculators, but there's technology out there that'll figure it out. And a 3, a 5, a 7% increase in revenue or a 3% improvement in your cost could actually double your profitability. And think about if you could double your profitability, what that would mean to you in terms of how you can grow your business, save up a little more for retirement, add a new store, right? Invest in some expansion. This is what we're talking about, because what we have to figure out is when do we want our best workers working? And how do I make sure that they're able to easily access those schedules, pick up, drop, and swap shifts, okay? So there's a lot of scheduling technology out there. There's some that's cheaper than ours, right? And it may do a fine job if you're an independent operator. If you're looking for best in class, I'm not making this a sales pitch, but look at the technology for scheduling, because in this labor-tight environment, scheduling can make a big, big difference to your economic and financial performance, okay? The third thing I'd like to talk about today is actually engagement with your teams. Okay, so we all think about wanting to have happy teams that are feeling good about coming to work. Most importantly, teams that are doing a good job for your customers. That's critical to having a good experience and having customers want to come back to your restaurant as often as they can. But there's a couple parts to this, okay? The first part is, how do I make sure I've got effective communication platforms? How do your managers talk to your workers, right? How do you as owners get information out to your team members? The way we communicate in today's environment, especially post-COVID, especially with the Gen Z, right, which is increasingly a large percentage of our working staff, is very different than how you and I communicate. And so you need to make sure you've got that effective communication platforms. And some of the better scheduling tools are not just scheduling tools, they're also communication platforms. Did you know that the average hourly worker who's on our platform comes to Hot Schedules 3.5 times each day, almost 4 times each day? It's an application on your phone. Think about your own phone. How many applications do you go to 4 times a day? Not that many, right? Like I'm kind of an Instagram junkie, so I put Insta on there. Probably text, probably my calendar, probably email, right? But that's about it. So these workers are going there 4 times a day. Why are they going there 4 times a day? Is it just to check their schedule? Do you think they forgot? No, it's a communication platform. They're picking up, dropping, swapping shifts. And that's the other part of engagement. Make it really easy for your workers to pick up, drop, and swap shifts. Because at the end of the day, for our hourly workers, they're working hard, they're hustling, they're trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And usually at the end of the month, they're a couple days short and missing a few bucks that they need to kind of make their ends meet. So if you can help them figure out how to pick up, drop, swap shifts, you're effectively increasing the number of workers you have available to you. You haven't increased your head count, but you've effectively increased the accessibility of that workforce because you've smoothed out their ability to pick up, drop, and swap shifts. You've maximized the potential of the team members you have. And that's a really important part of technology and how it can help you. The other part here is how many of you, when you were a restaurant manager, remember the days of having to worry about scheduling and manage scheduling and people who wanted to pick up, drop, or swap shifts? Anybody remember that brain damage in the old days? Yeah. Is that what you want your manager spending their time on? Heck no, right? Like, that's not what you want your manager spending their time on. And so again, technology can take a lot of this, automate it. You're getting computer algorithms that we've developed that will optimize your performance, but it's going to engage your staff and make it easier for your manager to focus on the other team elements and the experience elements of your customers that are going to make your store, your restaurant, a differentiated experience for the customer. So remember, technology is just not about hiring and staffing. It's also around engagement and communications, okay? Speed, speed, speed. Okay, that's hiring. The second part of the equation is how do I get my right staff deployed at the right times? Historically, we thought of labor costs partially as just, it's a cost game, right? I want to be smart about when I have workers in my restaurants. I want to make sure they're good and they're doing they're caring about my customers and delivering a quality experience. But, we often think about it as I need to manage my cost. And so scheduling was all around the cost. Now, Hot Schedules has built its reputation for 20 years as being a technology tool that helps you get the right team on the right shift at the right time. It's not just about cost anymore. It's also about revenue. How do you get the right workers working the right hours, in the right shifts, on the right days to maximize your revenue? You can try and figure it out. Maybe some of you are even good using spreadsheets and calculators, but there's technology out there that'll figure it out. And a 3, a 5, a 7% increase in revenue or a 3% improvement in your cost could actually double your profitability. And think about if you could double your profitability, what that would mean to you in terms of how you can grow your business, save up a little more for retirement, add a new store, right? Invest in some expansion. This is what we're talking about, because what we have to figure out is when do we want our best workers working? And how do I make sure that they're able to easily access those schedules, pick up, drop, and swap shifts, okay? So there's a lot of scheduling technology out there. There's some that's cheaper than ours, right? And it may do a fine job if you're an independent operator. If you're looking for best in class, I'm not making this a sales pitch, but look at the technology for scheduling, because in this labor-tight environment, scheduling can make a big, big difference to your economic and financial performance, okay? The third thing I'd like to talk about today is actually engagement with your teams. Okay, so we all think about wanting to have happy teams that are feeling good about coming to work. Most importantly, teams that are doing a good job for your customers. That's critical to having a good experience and having customers want to come back to your restaurant as often as they can. But there's a couple parts to this, okay? The first part is, how do I make sure I've got effective communication platforms? How do your managers talk to your workers, right? How do you as owners get information out to your team members? The way we communicate in today's environment, especially post-COVID, especially with the Gen Z, right, which is increasingly a large percentage of our working staff, is very different than how you and I communicate. And so you need to make sure you've got that effective communication platforms. And some of the better scheduling tools are not just scheduling tools, they're also communication platforms. Did you know that the average hourly worker who's on our platform comes to Hot Schedules 3.5 times each day, almost 4 times each day? It's an application on your phone. Think about your own phone. How many applications do you go to 4 times a day? Not that many, right? Like I'm kind of an Instagram junkie, so I put Insta on there. Probably text, probably my calendar, probably email, right? But that's about it. So these workers are going there 4 times a day. Why are they going there 4 times a day? Is it just to check their schedule? Do you think they forgot? No, it's a communication platform. They're picking up, dropping, swapping shifts. And that's the other part of engagement. Make it really easy for your workers to pick up, drop, and swap shifts. Because at the end of the day, for our hourly workers, they're working hard, they're hustling, they're trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And usually at the end of the month, they're a couple days short and missing a few bucks that they need to kind of make their ends meet. So if you can help them figure out how to pick up, drop, swap shifts, you're effectively increasing the number of workers you have available to you. You haven't increased your head count, but you've effectively increased the accessibility of that workforce because you've smoothed out their ability to pick up, drop, and swap shifts. You've maximized the potential of the team members you have. And that's a really important part of technology and how it can help you. The other part here is, how many of you, when you were a restaurant manager, remember the days of having to worry about scheduling and manage scheduling and people who wanted to pick up, drop, or swap shifts? Anybody remember that brain damage in the old days? Yeah. Is that what you want your manager spending their time on? Heck no, right? Like, that's not what you want your manager spending their time on. And so again, technology can take a lot of this, automate it. You're getting computer algorithms that we've developed that will optimize your performance, but it's going to engage your staff and make it easier for your manager to focus on the other team elements and the experience elements of your customers that are going to make your store, your restaurant, a differentiated experience for the customer. So remember, technology is just not about hiring and staffing. It's also around engagement and communications. Okay? Now let me go to the last topic here. And that's around pay flexibility. How many out there have heard of this concept of same-day pay or earned wage access, pay on demand? Okay, about a third of the folks out here. It's okay. A year ago, 2 years ago, I hadn't heard about it either. But what happened was, I was talking to my chairman, and we were talking about the fact that we've got, we got 1.4 million users on hot schedules alone. There's about 2.5 million users on our technology system. By users, I'm talking about your store managers and your hourly workers. And we thought, okay, we're doing everything we can to help restaurant owners, restaurant operators, but could we be doing more with our technology to actually help the hourly worker? How many of you here started your first job as an hourly worker? Yeah, most of us, right? For how many of you did that eventually become your career? Right? For in restaurant industry, many of us, that was the case. For your restaurant workers, for your team members, the hourly workers, whether you are a 16-year-old and it's your first job, or whether you're 35 and this is the life you've chosen, it's a hard way to make a living, right? We all remember what that's like. And one of the biggest frustrations I remember when I had an hourly job was I'd earned all this money and I was still 10 days away from payday, right? And something was coming up, right? I wanted to buy a bike, right? Or I wanted to go to a concert, right? Or I needed to pay for a repair on my car. And it's like, I've earned the money, but I haven't been paid. It's so frustrating. I wondered why we have this cycle where people get paid out every 2 weeks. And look, in tipped environments, a little bit different, right? If you think about back of house or, it's every 2 weeks. The reason we pay every 2 weeks is simply because running payroll used to be a real pain in the rear end, right? It was a hassle. Anybody here deal with their own payroll? Right? Man, it's painful, isn't it? Now you got things like garnishments and all the different forms of tax. And so it used to be hard. But the reality is most of that's pretty easy now. And there's products that have been developed that will allow your hourly workers to get paid when they finish their shift. Let me tell you how it works with our products. It's called Fuego. It's kind of a play on hot schedules, right? If you're from a Latin background, clearly Fuego makes sense. If you're a millennial or Gen Z, you understand what Fuego means, right? It's become part of English. But what Fuego is, which is a play off hot schedules, is simply an integrated platform that allows a worker to look when they go to see their schedule, say, hey, look, you've earned $450, Sarah. Would you like to transfer these funds into your account? And if you want to sign up, you just one click to join, and it's basically a bank account, right? No risk to the restaurant. We bear any risk, and it's not like a payday loan. You've earned those wages. You're getting paid the wages. When it's time for payroll, we simply, just like any other deduction, deduct whatever wages Sarah received, and then the restaurant pays out the net. What this means is a few things. A worker can access their pay when they've earned it. It's free to them. It's free to the restaurant. And the companies who provide these services, we're one of them, make money from the card companies. Visa, right? We've got direct relationship with Visa, and so when Sarah takes the money she's earned and she goes to Walmart and buys something, or goes to the gas station, or goes to the grocery store, those vendors pay Visa a little bit of interchange, and they give a little bit back to the companies who provide these services. Here's the benefit. We surveyed and found that almost 90% of workers who are using this product today at the stores where we've deployed this say, I would not leave my current job for another job that didn't have the same offering, that same ability to get paid daily. Now, look, the reality is most folks don't get paid daily, right? What they choose to do is a couple of times a paycheck, they'll just draw down the funds, right? They're not drawing it down every day. And by the way, it's no economic expense to the restaurants, right? We fund everything. But what it does is it allows them to get access to their pay. We've seen a 25% increase in retention, right? They stay. And more importantly, they work more hours. I had this great debate with this human resource officer who's an old school gentleman from West Texas. And he worked in the oil field. He says, this is the worst concept I've ever heard in my life. This is the dumbest thing you guys could ever build. I'm like, what? This is our new product. We love it. Like, what are you talking about? It's dumb. He said, I worked in the oil field industry, and our rig workers, they'd come out from, working on the rigs, and we'd pay them after 2 weeks. And then they'd go on a bender for 4 days, and we wouldn't see them. And I said, Joe, that might have been the case in West Texas with oil rig workers. I can tell you the data from the restaurants where we've deployed this product, workers are actually increasing the number of hours they work in a month by over 10%. Think about it. Think back to I won't use my daughter. She's pretty level-headed. Think about my other son, Eric. Right? Eric's that kid who's kind of living in the moment, right? Kind of flying by the seat of his pants. You probably have a few workers in your restaurants like that. I was talking to Eric, and Eric was working at this summer camp, and he was an hourly worker. He was at college. He was in college at the time. It's just his last summer. He's now still in college. But I said to him, Eric, we're coming out with this new product. It's Friday night. You've just finished a shift. You suddenly see a notification pop up on hot schedules that says, Eric, would you like to pick up another shift? Would you take it? He says, no. I said, I want to go out on Saturday night. I said, well, what if the shift was an 8-to-5 shift and you could get paid at 5 o'clock? He says, yeah, I'd do that. I'm like, why? He says, because I get the money, right? I can go out with my friends Saturday night. I've got like a whole other day's worth of pay. And this is a point, right? Like Eric's a bad example because Eric wanted to go have fun with his friends. But think about other life events, right? Rent's due. I had a flat tire and I have to replace the tire, right? Kids have an activity coming up at school and they need an extra $100, right? Whatever it might be, we all know that our hourly workers are often facing situations where they need access to pay. This isn't predatory, it's free for them. It's not one of those payday loan type situations. And we know that, did you know that in our applicant tracking systems, 20% of all hourly workers who apply for a job don't have a bank account. So this is a social good too. You're giving people who are either underbanked or non-banked their first banking relationship with a real bank account, with savings tools, with the chance to earn more at a cost that's nothing to them. So we think this is going to be a game changer. And so that's the fourth point. If you haven't thought about same-day pay, earned wage access, pay on demand, there's a bunch of words for it because it's new. You ought to talk to somebody about it because we think this could be a real game changer in terms of you figuring out one of the strategies for how you can get access to more labor, to keep that labor longer, keep them happier, and keep them more productive. Okay, so remember, we all want more of the pie. In today's labor environment, there's not more pie going around. We have to kind of fight for that last piece. There's 4 key strategies, right? 1, hire faster. Key takeaway, decrease by 90% the time from first contact to offer. Hire faster, hire more effectively. Number 2, deploy your talent most effectively, right? Make sure you've got a smart schedule that's figuring out when the best people should be working against a demand forecast. There's lots of tools out there to consider. I'd really encourage you to think about having a forecasting and scheduling tool that's using the most advanced technology to help you staff your teams. 3, engage with those teams, right? Make sure you've got effective communication, right? You're using those scheduling platforms to communicate with your teams, to keep them informed, to allow them to pick up, to drop, and swap shifts. Decrease the friction, right? If there's anything that's unique about the millennial and Gen Z and generations, they don't like friction. They're not used to waiting in line and waiting for things, right? They expect it now, which is a good thing. we can also leverage those tools to help engage them and keep them working for you longer. And number 4 is same-day pay, right? Figure out how these new pay models can help you create competitive advantage against that other restaurant down the street who's vying for the same talent, and allow you to put in the hands of your workers tools that help them meet their ends meet. Okay, I tried to summarize that in kind of 4 key lessons we've seen around the marketplace. Let me pause there and see if anybody has any questions, anything you'd like me to go deeper on, or anything that was a little, either didn't resonate with you or not. We've got 2 questions right over here. You 2 gentlemen. That's a great question, right? So the question here is on same-day pay, is it gross or net? Okay, so what we do is, with our product, is that we only allow them at any given time to take down at most 50%. We're going to be moving to 75%, but to allow for situations like that, right, where either there's tax or maybe there's a garnishment, right? Maybe John's not paying child support and there's a garnishment in place, right? So what we're basically allowing them to do right now is access 50% real time. We're going to move to 75% as we kind of test out the model, but there is some minimum withholding to make sure we're covering tax and other issues like that. Great question. Yeah, that's a great question. Now the question is, Fuego, the product we pay, is it part of hot schedules? Yes, it's integrated. It's a separate application, but to the user, it feels like a singular experience. And one of the things we've seen with integration, which is really important, is a lot of other companies are having like maybe 5%, 10% take up. We're seeing anywhere from 30 to 90% take up amongst the hourly workforce, because every time they go to hot schedules, they can actually see how much they're getting in terms of what they've earned and what they could get. So yeah, integration is a really important part of that. I think there's a question right here. This is a great question, right? This is kind of, you look like you're about my age, right? Like, the question was, hey, is this actually a good thing for our workers? Because if we allow them to get instant access to pay, is it going to be like Eric, my 20-year-old, who's just kind of spending it and maybe being not as responsible as he should be with his funds? It's a fair point. What we've seen is that the average worker draws down funds twice during a pay period, on average 4 times during the month. Okay? That tells me that people are generally being responsible. And I think what you have to say is, at the end of the day, do you trust your workers to be smart about how they're spending their money and how they're using it? And what we've seen is, whether we think it's a good idea or not, this is where the future's going, and it's going to be a choice, and people want it. So what we've done to help with that is we've done 2 things. One, we've implemented a savings goal. We've gamified savings. We've said, okay, what do you want to save for? What's your savings target? And we list that savings target. Every time they earn funds, we tell them, you've advanced this much closer towards your savings target. And we remind them. And then we give them the chance to pick up more shifts. The second part is, we're actually also including personal financial management tools. Okay, so in there, we're actually saying, hey, would you like to learn about savings? Would you like to learn about, if you put money away now, how much is it worth in 10 years, right? We're actually, for many young people, they've never been taught that, right? They've grown up in homes where their parents either didn't or didn't know how to teach them these things. And so we've actually got a whole module in Fuego around personal financial management tools. I see another question back here. A little bit louder. Yes, absolutely. Yep, so we and others, right? I don't want to make a sales pitch about us. We and others have made this work with all payroll companies, right? So whoever you're using with payroll, it's the same process, right? At the end of the day, you've got a file, right? A kind of a data file you're sending to payroll. We send that same data to the payroll company, right? Just as a deduction, and that's how that works. Yeah, right here. This is a great question, right? So what happens if I have tips? How do I do tips management? Yes. What we've developed is partnerships with tip management companies, and however you manage tips, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, right, whether you're paying out daily, whether you're paying out every 2 weeks, however you manage tips, yes, we've incorporated those various models in to be able to work with Fuego. Yep, and I think I saw one more question over here, sorry. This is a great question, right? Which is, how does this impact turnover, right? So we've had this product in the market for about 10 months now, and we've seen two interesting statistics. With Fuego, the take-up rate is anywhere from about 25% all the way up to about 85%, right? Almost 90, 87 I think it is. That's the number of employees who are taking it up. The second part is, based on the data we've seen, it increases retention by 20%, right? So it's making a difference, because what we did see was that almost 90% of people who are using it today said, I would not leave this company and join another restaurant group if they don't have the same capability, right? Because it's changing how people get access to their funds. And this point's an interesting one, right? There's this debate, right? Is it going to help people be more responsible or not? We're actually seeing for most people it's actually helping them make their ends meet, and it's helping them actually pick up more shifts, right? They're actually working more shifts because they're seeing, hey, I can earn this and get this, and I know that if I need the funds, like, think about it. The most frustrating situation for a restaurant worker is December. Why is December so frustrating? If I'm back of house, right? So if I'm not getting tips daily, or maybe my tips are coming every 2 weeks with my paycheck. December the 25th hits. One of my busiest times is the holidays, and I'm gonna get paid on December the 31st, and I needed the money on December the 15th, right? So the ability for people in those holiday schedules to get paid ahead of the holidays to be able to meet some of the costs and expenses of the holidays is a really important part of this as well, as an example. Okay, I think that's time. Thank you all for spending time with us. If you want to learn more, we're booth 51, which is just literally 10 steps out that way. And I hope great time at the show. Huge thanks for FoodCentric for letting us come and share this presentation. Good luck with the show. Thank you.